and gentlemen, do you hear me correctly? My name is Abdel. I'm with the UNDP in New York, headquarters of the UNDP. I'm in charge of the governance area for the Caribbean. In area, I'm honored to chair, moderate, facilitate. Well, this is supposed to be a conversation with the audience, you, and the distinguished speakers, experts, politicians that we have with us today. Let me first introduce Dr. Hani. His Excellency has been, since February 2011 until now, Minister of Industry and Trade, head of the economic team of the National Bank of Jordan. Before that, he has been Jordan's ambassador of our Republic of Egypt and the permanent representative to the United States. He has been a member of the House of Senate since November 2005 until November 2007. He has been advisor to Ismail, King Abdel II, foreign minister of Jordan, and has been leading the negotiations for peace treaty with Israel. It is for us very important to know from him his experience, his knowledge and advice on the issue that we are going to discuss today with you, taking active part in it. We also have from Tunisia, Mr. Abdel Fattah. He is in charge of the fact-finding commission on corruption. We do not have to forget that one of the leading reasons behind the revolts, the revolutions in Tunisia and in Egypt has been the insatisfaction by the people around it, corruption of their leaders, and the way they make use of the regions and the resources of the country. So Mr. Abdel Fattah has a very important task in this country. He was director of the study and research in law and political science at law at Tunisia, dean of the Faculty of Legal, Political and Social Science of Tunisia, and member of the Constitutional Council from 1987 to 1992. We also have Latin America, Sergio Bitar. Sergio Bitar has been a minister in the government of former President Salvador Allende. He has also been Senator, Minister of Education, Minister of Public Works in the presidential cabinets of Ricardo Lagos and Michelle Bachelet. He was president and co-founder of the Party for Democracy. He's an economist and politician. He's the author of several books, including a best-selling memoir of his time in prison entitled Islam 10, Ayman 10, which inspired the film Dawson, which was made in 2009. The topic that we're going to discuss today is economic growth, economy, the search for equity, transparency, and human development. But if you allow me to use one of the main messages that we send from the UNDP, the necessity to have an economy for people, human development, direct economy. The way we are going to work this afternoon is different from the way we have been working in the past 2 days. We are not supposed to only listen, but we'll start from the very beginning with you asking, posing questions to the three speakers that we have today. Can I give the floor to someone to pose questions directly? Please. Please name your name
point in time, because we see that the internal debt has been mounting to reach more than 900 billion Egyptian pounds, which constitute a little bit more than 70%. Is okay? To the external debt that we have, and yet last week our new minister of finance announced the new budget, and in the new budget we are suffering from around 180 billion Egyptian pounds, which constitute around 20-something% of deficit, which probably either going to be financed hopefully by raising debt, although we don't know how we are going to get increasing the problem of debt, or by printing money, which will probably contribute to the increase in the inflation rate, which of course will not ease the situation for the poor people in Egypt. And part of the revolt that happened is that people having more expectations of having a sort of economic prosperity. So my point here actually is that, or my question which is posed, how this has been managed in other countries, and how can we create a certain balance, despite the fact that although we have high hopes for external aid, and we have lots of promises, but as we have heard before from our colleagues in South Africa, it was the same promises that they have got, and it was the same promises that was not fulfilled. Especially also now that there is a crisis in the United States, crisis in Europe, crisis in Japan, and the rest of the world, I think, is ideologically against the existing revolution in Egypt. So from your point of view, how we can balance this? And would it be better to move on with giving more promises to the people, or trying to make people face reality, risking a political evil or a second revolution?
Thank you very much. I think the question is quite clear, and let me ask the question to all three, if you allow.
Thank you very much. I would rather speak in Arabic to address the audience in Arabic. يعني أنا أتفهم القدر من الحذر ومن الهواجس الموجودة لديكم في هذا الوقت الحالي حول نمو الدين العام، سواء كان داخليا أو خارجيا. ولكن لابد لنا إذا كنا نريد أن نتعامل مع هذه القضية أن نتعامل معها ليست كظاهرة وإنما كنتيجة، حتى نستطيع أن نخرج بإجابات واضحة حول التعامل مع هذه النتيجة. أولاً، أنا أعتقد من الواجب فوراً أن نعود إلى العمل. لا بد لنا أن نعود إلى العمل، وبهذا المفهوم لا بد لنا أن نعيد الأمن والأمان إلى المجتمع المسلم. هذه هي البداية، وأن نتوقف عن إصدار كل الآمال السريعة للمواطنين، لأن الانتكاسة ستكون أصعب. لا زال الاقتصاد المصري قادر وبسرعة إلى العودة إلى ما كان عليه قبل الثورة المباركة، ولكن هذا لا يتأتى بالتمني. لا بد أولاً أن نعود إلى العمل، لا بد ثانياً أن نعلن التزاماً كاملاً بالقوانين الاستثمارية، سواء التي تعجبنا أو لا تعجبنا. الالتزام بالقوانين الاستثمارية والاتفاقيات الدولية التي وقعتها جمهورية مصر العربية، لنرسل رسائل الاطمئنان إن تغيير القوانين وتغيير مرجعيات الاقتصاد في ظل هذا الظرف خطر جدا، لأن هذا سيعيدك إلى نقطة البناء من الصفر. هذه القوانين وهذه الأنظمة الاقتصادية التي تمت في مصر لم تتم في خلال فترة شهر أو شهرين، وإنما بنيت على سنوات، وبالتالي نعتقد أنها تحتاج على الأقل إلى سنة أو أكثر لتطويرها لتصبح أكثر شفافية وأكثر مسؤولية ومساءلة للجميع.
We were expecting to have translation, but we don't have it written in this place.
I don't know what we have here today, but it's okay. I'll speak in English.
You speak very well.
It's not a matter of speaking well English. You know, we're in an Arab country. I'm an Arab, and I would expect to speak in Arabic. But anyhow, for the benefit of the audience,
that's a problem because we don't have the translation.
يعني we'll solve this problem.
Somebody has to tell me what we are hearing. Okay. Okay.
When you finish, because I'm taking the notes in English already.
Okay.
So you want me to repeat again?
No, I already summarized.
Excuse me for this problem. We're supposed to have this technical thing here.
Okay, does everyone hear? Am I loud enough? Okay, His Excellency says he understands the level of caution in terms of increased debt in Egypt. But in order to deal with the problem, one has to deal with it as a result. As a result, to enable us to come up with answers to deal with the problem that we have at hand. The first point is that it's necessary to go back to action, meaning that we need to regain security on the ground in the Egyptian community at first. This is the start. We should also stop all of those increasing hopes that we cannot meet. We need to go back to work. The second point is that we need to commit ourselves where investment laws are concerned. Whether we like them or not, they are there. It's not just investment laws, also international treaties that were signed by Egypt, and this would enable us to send direct messages outside. Changing the laws and the economic standards in this specific context that Egypt is going through is dangerous and will take us to square one. The economic systems in Egypt did not happen overnight, but it took time to be established, and there's a need for at least 1 or 2 years for them to become more transparent and effective. I hope I summed everything up.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Actually, and just to finalize and say the following. We need at this time more than ever before in Egypt to separate our fiscal policy from our economic policies. This is the time where we have to concentrate on economic policies to jumpstart the economy again. Fiscal policies, as long as they coincide and work together with the monetary policy at this time, and I see that the US dollar, the foreign currency, is balanced at this time. I think more concentration should be on economic policies, as well as start to work on developing some social policies with immediate returns. And with immediate returns means that we should be able to provide in the very early future, better health, better education services. This can be delivered as early as September. Now, one thing I caution against, and I made it, as we were discussing lunch today, I made this point again. The economic ideology that Egypt has been following after the communism is not a bad ideology. It's just the instruments were not implemented properly. That's why we saw corruption. That's why we saw backdoor dealing and wheeling. This we all saw. But the results has been tremendously unfulfilled. But that again, I caution against changing gear. Social safety nets can provide the requirements of the population within the current market economy structure, but they have to be implemented. So let's not change gear, but let's develop policies that go side by side with the principles of the market economy rather than to turn away. case this is not made clear by the government, people will start having misperceptions about where the Egyptian economy is going, and that would hurt even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very clear answer. Can I pass the floor to Mr. Fattah?
The demand, especially the demand, the increasing wages and other demands coming from the public are on the rise. and the situation is not that good, especially where the economy has been badly affected and will remain affected till the end of this year. How to respond to all of the pressures and demands? No doubt, debt comes into the question. There is a need for debt in such specific situations. The importance is to respond, even if relatively to the demands that are coming from the public. The question is how to find the balance between the demands and the capacities that are already available in the country. The equation is difficult, and the recent incidents in Tunisia show that finding the balance or striking the balance is not easy, and there are a lot of challenges and obstacles that are in the way. The important thing is for the economy to regain its activity to positively affect the revenue framework of the economy.
Sounds impeccable. Thank you very much. Ms. Bitar.
I can add just a few words to what my two colleagues have said. That the importance in transitions is the direction, not necessarily the speed. You can go a little bit slower, but it's very important to put the direction of where you're moving, the principles that you will apply. And in that sense, probably you won't get the elimination of your deficit in 1 year or 2 or 3, but the important thing is to know that in order to have a good transition, you need to have a good managed economy, and therefore you have to reduce your deficit. So if the IMF helps now, that's okay, but the direction should be to reduce that deficit. Now, how to do it? Well, in our case, what we did is we increased expenditure in social issues, but we focused that, so we eliminated all those subsidies that were going wrong for groups that didn't need it. Secondly, we increased taxes, and that's very important also. And third, we push for growth, because growth will create more income for the government, and also will create more employment that helps a lot. So when we studied later on, after a few years, what provoked the reduction of poverty was the combination of 3 main factors. First, by far, employment. When you have people employed, even if they earn little, they reduce their level of poverty. Second, we helped with directing subsidies to the family with economic transfers, depending on the size of the family, subsidies for water, electricity, for the poor income families. So we could define those families, we had the list of those families, we had a system to measure them, and we would direct to them those subsidies. And thirdly, to expand, and that made a big difference, not only in poverty but in inequality, the provision of public goods, mainly education, health, and housing. We need a big program of housing. So even today, we weren't very successful in reducing inequality. We reduced poverty, but we couldn't reduce enough inequality because the trend of the economy tends to concentrate the power in a few hands. And therefore, what we did, what we measure now, the quintile, the 20% poorer and the 20% richer, even today is 14 times. It's not a lot. But when you add to that transfers and provision of public services, that went down to 7 to 1. From 14 to 1 to 7 to 1. So it helps, but you have to direct in that sense things. Secondly, we start paying when we had some excess coming from our exports or other taxes, paying our public debt. We reduced our public debt from 70% of GDP in 1990 to 7% of GDP in 2010. So that allows us a lot to have more room for maneuvering and to avoid the impact on the Chilean economy and all Latin America, I would say, from this international economic crisis from the United States, because we had a strong banking system. So also we put very strong conditions to the banking system so that they don't play with the money of the people. They have to be very careful have more regulatory bodies on different areas of the economy, and reduce the size of the state in terms of ownership of small and medium-sized enterprises, and to concentrate on the big issues, social policies, science and technology, education, infrastructure, and therefore to make the government work better, because the state apparatus is become bureaucratic and continues to be bureaucratic. It will be hindering growth.
Thank you very much. So if I understand you correctly, the three of you advocate for going in the same direction, putting the emphasis on economic development, showing some democracy dividends from the very beginning, social products of the people, and entering into negotiations with those who are the borrowers, the lenders of the state debt that you have. You will have to enter into negotiation with the IMF in this case, because
If I may,
of course.
just His Excellency Bitar and myself emphasize one thing that should not go unnoticed. There has to be, in the beginning, a real separation between your economic policies and your fiscal policies. Don't let the fiscal policies affect your economic policy in the first year. You have to have a sound economic policy, and then, if you need help, IMF, but not IMF, it is not important to finish all your debt in 10 years or 15 years. It can stay 20 years, but you have to be on the right track. Economic policy is the answer today, not fiscal.
Thank you very much for this declaration. Can I just pass the microphone to? Well, you had another declaration, excuse me.
Apologizing that he has a very important commitment that we will have to leave in about 10 minutes. So if there are any questions that are targeting him as a person, please ask them now prior to his departure.
Thank you very much. Just got one, indirectly has to do with the economy, certainly with what you said about the policy choices that you're going to make. The question now is safety and security are key to restart the economy.